Welcome back, everybody, to the Cheer PT. And I am Laura Turner. I am a physical therapist and a strength coach, and I own Move Better Physical Therapy, and I am the Cheer PT. I hope you're doing well today. Thank you for joining me, and let me know how you like these podcasts so far and this vlog so far. Are there anything that you'd like to see different? Something you'd like to see less of, more of? Anything along the lines of physical therapy and fitness and injury prevention for cheerleaders and performance enhancement for cheerleaders, let me know, because that's what I would like to be able to help you with as we go forward. So today we're going to talk about ankle sprains. They are probably the second most common injury in cheerleading, and it's very easy to sprain your ankle. Challenging, but easy. So what happens during an ankle sprain? It's basically you roll your ankle. That's the typical, somebody comes off the mat and they're hurt, like, oh, I rolled my ankle. And it can happen, you can have a sprain of the ligaments, which we'll talk about in a second, on either side of your ankle, the inside or the outside. Bear with me, I've got my light issues right now. So the outside of the ankle, there are ligaments on the outside of the ankle that attach the outside of the bone, the bone on the outside of your leg, which is called the fibula, to your foot, the foot bones. So ligaments attach bone to bone. That's the most common ankle sprain. If your foot is here and it rolls out this way, that's a lateral ankle sprain. Conversely, you can sprain the medial, the inside ligaments, and they attach your tibia to your foot. And so you can have both if your foot rolls both ways. Once the ligament gets stretched out, it doesn't get the same contractile properties that it originally has. So can they heal? Absolutely. The blood flow to them, they do get scar tissue around them, and they can heal and continue to function. But do they get the same strength back? Not really. And so you might be more at risk for a re-injury if you sprain your ankle. It's really important. What happens during an ankle sprain? Let's talk about that first. The first sign that you'll see is probably a little bit of swelling. If it's just an easy sprain, it might just leave you a little bit of pocket of swelling on the outside, usually the outside kind of right at the top of the foot. If it's a little bit bigger, your ankle might blow up, kind of like a balloon. That's when you need to make sure you get something, you go get checked out. If you roll your ankle and you can get up, you can walk on it, and you can keep moving it, even if it hurts, you might be okay. You might not have to worry about a fracture. If you can't move your foot and you can't put weight on it and you can't walk on it, now not walking on it means if you can take a couple steps and it's hurting and you need some help, but then you can kind of gradually get there, that's an iffy zone. But if you really you can't and you're getting shooting pains, you might have broken something and you need to go get it checked. So get yourself to your athletic, either way, you're going to get yourself to your athletic trainer. But he or she may send you to your physician also to get an x-ray. You don't always need an x-ray when you have an ankle sprain, because it's good to limit the amount of x-rays that you have because of the radiation that you get. So we don't like to just x-ray for the sake of x-raying, because it won't show if you had a sprained ankle. What it will show is if you have a fracture. So you would go to rule out a fracture. And we're just going to talk about sprains today, because fractures can have a little bit different of a healing time. So with an ankle sprain, you're likely going to be put into some sort of immobilizing device. It might be a whole boot that comes up to your knee, or it might just be kind of a sleeve that you slide on and then it laces up, and it has two metal stays, bars basically on the outside of the ankle. That helps to stop the ankle from rolling and wobbling. Depending on the degree of sprain, you might have to be on crutches for a little bit so that you can gradually increase your weight bearing and get it back into moving. It's usually good to elevate your foot. So when you get home after you got it checked out, you're going to elevate your foot. You're going to lie flat on your back with your leg up on some pillows, hang out while you're drinking your water and rehydrating from your day. Sometimes we recommend ice. It's a little bit controversial right now. I say use ice if it hurts, because it can take away the pain. But sometimes we don't always recommend ice because it actually impedes some of the healing. So it really depends on what you're feeling, and that's when you should talk to your provider about that. So you're going to elevate and let it rest. Generally, it's okay to start moving your ankle right away. You know, I always tell people move it in the range that feels okay. You know, you can move up and down, you can move in and out, and you can do circles, both directions, or figure eights. Those are like my basic go-to exercises when you first come into therapy. You might not want to do that the first couple of days because it's sore. You know, wiggle your toes, move your thigh around, bend your knee. The more motion you do, move your other foot. That will actually train your brain to move that injured side. So create some motion as you start. That's going to help get rid of the swelling. Getting your motion back, getting the muscles pumping, getting your venous return, the blood flow going back up towards your heart. That all helps get rid of that swelling. Swelling usually is what creates pain and creates limitation in movement and then strength. And so we want to get the mobility back, get rid of the swelling, start to build up your strength so that you can train your muscles to help to support where the ligaments are. I think, you know, in my experience as a PT, the biggest limitation people have in getting back into activity is their range of motion. That's a little bit harder to get back as you start. And that's the sooner you start some easy motion, the better that gets. So what's range of motion? It's how much your ankle can bend and straighten and turn in and turn out and rock. It needs to do those three planes of motions at your ankle joint, but also in your foot. When we're not walking normally, we don't land that mid-heel and roll to push off our big toe. We don't have that good toe extension. We don't get that great motion in through the ankle nor the toes and that midfoot. And so they stiffen up and tighten up, and then that creates more work that has to happen at the ankle, and then that creates more pain, and it's a big cycle. So getting in, working on your whole foot mobility as well as the ankle mobility, keeping your knee and your hip strong can help that recover quickly. I think, yes, I'm a PT. It's important to get in and do some therapy. You know, can you get back after a mild sprain and not having problems? Sure, absolutely. You don't always need to go to physical therapy. If you can get up, you can walk on it. There's really no swelling, but it's just a little tweaky. The more you walk on it, you start to move it, practice your balance, you might not need to go for any formal treatment. But if it's a little bit worse and it's lingering, get in there. The sooner you get in, the sooner you're back out on the mat. So get it checked out, see where you're at. Depends on what state you're in. You may or may not need to go to your physician. In Massachusetts, you don't have to go to your physician. You can come straight to physical therapy, depending on your insurance. Where was I going with that? I need to remember my brain. Let's go. All right, so creating some better ankle mobility and strength. Now, the big concern from where I stand and what I've learned over the last couple of years is your ankle stability will play a big role in what your hip does. If your ankle ligaments and your muscles aren't working right, if they're overworking and trying to hold you in place and just trying to hold you steady, it might shut down your hip a little bit because they react together. Your ankle, if your ankle goes out, your hip goes out. What happens there if you're up in a stunt? You're up like this, right? So working to train your ankle in relationship to your hip, getting your hip strong, making sure your hip moves normally so that your foot can move normally can make the world of difference when you return into stunting, tumbling, and any above. You know, because our hips are our big muscles. Our foot muscles are they are like powerhouses, but they're not big. They're pretty long and thin, and they have to do a lot of work, but they're smaller muscles than your hip muscles are. So we've got to make sure our hip muscles are working at the right time, the right speed, in relationship to what the foot does. And it absolutely will create compensations. In tumbling, same thing on that landing, that impact, you know, you need to make sure your glutes are working. So if your front and back, if your calf is locked down, or your shin muscles, your anterior tib, and your flexor hallucis, your extensor hallucis on your big toe, if they're not working right and not able to get that push off, you're not going to get the same glute strength and the hip flexors strength as you need to be able to handspring, tuck, whatever, and then to land it. So doing some work, some three-dimensional work, really getting that foot to move better and move fully into those three ranges of motion so that you can create better strength up the chain is super important. proprioception. That's what the ligaments do. Proprioception is basically feedback to the brain. The ligaments send a signal to your brain and say, hey, this is where my body is in space. Make sure it's safe. And your brain sends a signal back and goes, oh, hey, joint, let's make sure that we stand here. And we are in the right spot. And you have to act and you have to move this way. And it's very subtle corrections, but that's a huge piece of what ligaments do. So if that's stressed out a little bit, we need to train the rest of the foot and train the ligaments around that. So doing things like walking on uneven surfaces, standing on a rock garden, using, I love these things called nabosu, and I have a foot insert, a shoe insert. But they also make a mat, which I think is amazing, and it's just little, it's feedback into your feet with little bumps on it. Sounds worse than it is. It's not. It's super comfortable. It makes your feet feel amazing, and you can stand on it. You can, that actually helps to get some feedback in and get you some more feedback from your foot to your brain, so that you have that balance and that proprioception. And then kinesthetic awareness. That's how your joint moves in space and knowing, where it's supposed to be and being able to replicate that. All of that comes with having proper mobility through your foot, your knee, your hip, and your spine. And they all go together. Everything's connected from your foot up into your head. So if something's not working right down there, it's going to throw things off up here. Working to correct that, learning how to move, creating some good, healthy movement through your foot and your ankle that carries up the chain to get some strength in your hips will make sure that you stay healthy on the mat and keep that safe. Ankle sprains are not catastrophic, generally. Repeated strains will make it more, it gets more and more stretched out. A grade 4 is a complete tear. Generally, that's not going to heal. A grade 1, it's pretty mild, minimal swelling. So grade 4, you don't necessarily have to go for surgery. They do surgery on the ankle and ankle reconstruction, ligament reconstructions. I don't see them very often, thankfully, because I think you can actually strengthen, you can function and create better strength without them. But it depends on where you're at in your life. Like if you are in the thick of things and it's really bad, you might need to do that. If you keep rolling and you keep falling, then you might need to check that out. But that's something you and your sports physician will determine. An avulsion fracture is when that ligament maybe breaks off. There's a little bit of a fracture, kind of breaks off a piece of the bone. And so that may require more immobilization. It can happen in generally it doesn't have to necessarily be a very mild sprain. I don't think like a level grade 1, you're going to see that. It tends to be a little bit more aggressive sprain, and you may not know that you have a fracture because sometimes the views on the x-rays don't always show the avulsion. So sometimes it takes a little bit more of imaging to determine that. If there are signs and that we'll look at, if you can tap at it, if you can't weight bear it, if it's not getting better and the swelling's not going down, then your physician's going to want to do more testing and maybe order more imaging for that and see if there is an avulsion. That would require that boot. Unless it's a pretty bad fracture, depending on where it's at, they're not going to put you in a whole long leg cast. Generally, a long leg cast would be if it happens on the inside part of your ankle and the tibia bone, because that's like your main weight-bearing bone. But for the lateral ankle sprains, you can immobilize, and it's in a walking boot. And usually, depending on how it feels, they'll usually let you put weight through it, because really with the boot, you're not going to get a lot of motion in there, and that's what you want. You want to immobilize it, keep it still, so that that bone can heal. Once that's healed, which takes 4 to 6 weeks, that's the normal healing time for that bone to fully heal. It heals, then you work on getting your motion back, getting your strength back, getting your proprioception back, getting your kinesthetic awareness back, all of that same stuff. That's what I got for you today on ankle sprains. I hope that was helpful. You can participate. I've had cheerleaders come and they wear ankle braces, and you can practice in them. You can jump in them. I know in competitions, when I was coaching, they were iffy on letting people have ankle braces on, so you might get taped at that point. I don't love tape because I think it restricts your movement too much. I mean, the sleeves that come on, they restrict you. You really can't have any side-to-side motion, which is important for your balance. But those at least allow a little motion and you can come in and out of them. Tape, it like locks your ankle down. Don't use tape to make your stunt hit. If you can't control your stunt without the tape, then that's a problem. Tape, if you're having pain and you can't wear a brace and using athletic tape, it will provide you that stability to get you through. But it's not, it's not the end all be all, and it's not something that you should be doing. Like if you're in the thick of competition season and you're able to practice without the tape, or you're able to practice with your brace on, but then you need the tape for competition, try it before, because you don't want to go into competition for the first time with, in a new foot mechanics. The tape can help for that. Then make sure you're taking it off and not relying on that. You still have to do the work. Anything in cheer, any injury recovery, rehab, you have to do the work. Any injury reduction plan, you have to do the work. How do you prevent an ankle sprain? That's what I got for you too. Same way as you rehab it, really. You create good mobility in your feet. You create good reaction times. Your foot should be able to roll to the side without tearing a ligament. If you don't have the mobility there and you don't have the strength and you get to that end range and you don't have your bones and your ligaments don't tell your brain that it has to course correct, and then get the other muscles to self-correct and turn you the other direction, then that ends up in problems. So working to create good mobility through your foot all the way up the chain and having whole body awareness is crucial to helping to prevent an ankle sprain. There's no way you should be, we all, and I hate the word should, I got to be better at that. There is work that we can do to not have us walking down the street and rolling our ankle. If you had an ankle sprain and it's been a problem, that's going to hurt. But generally, we shouldn't be rolling your ankle walking down the street. It generally happens because you go on a surface that's too much for you. So if you're on cheer competition and you step off the mat and you kind of hit the edge of the mat and it rolls, that tendon can do it. If you land wrong out of a tumble pass, and your ankle rolls, that's definitely one way that can happen. So having that good body awareness, having good mobility and good control, knowing your surroundings can make a huge difference in preventing an ankle sprain. One of the things in my research that showed the most common way people were spraining their ankles was not so much while they were tumbling, but collisions and transitions. I mean, come on. That's when we have to know our spots. We have to take our time. We have to be totally focused. And we need to make sure that we're breathing, because a lot of times we're like, oh, gotta go. And then you don't think about where you're at, and you lose and you all of a sudden collide into somebody. And that's how people were finding ankle sprains. So, to me, that's fixable. If you know your spot and you know your place in your routine and you're making sure you know every single person knows, and you know that momentum over and over again. And yeah, when you're practicing, you don't, but that you're not going full out when you're learning something. So be focused, know where you're at, make sure you have connection with everybody on the team, and that will help there also. All right, that's all I got today. I hope you have a great day. Let's go, and I will see you here next time. Take care.